So today Billy is going to show us how we can use something we all have access to pretty much. And Billy is going to show us how we can use that and use it to our advantage and to enhance our business in a few ways. So Billy, with that and without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight I've got a little bit of an interesting one for you, and there's a surprise twist in the little exercise. We're going to take a very nice traditional South African fudge recipe that I found on food.com. If you want to see the link, I've put it on the top of the spreadsheet there. And it's the fudge that you make with the Nestle condensed milk. A lot of people just use Excel for dumping information in. As you can see here, I literally copied and pasted from the website. And then if you try and do any maths or anything on this or anything intelligent, you can't work with it. So before you can actually use this information, you have to structure your information into either columns or rows, depending on the type of data. So what we would do in this case, we could say we need condensed milk, and in the next column we'll put there we need 397 grams. Well, let's not put the grams. It's not gonna. I'll show you. Oh, let me show you why. If I put 375 grams in there, and I try and do maths on that, and I say times 2, it's not gonna pick it up because I'm mixing numbers and text. The moment you put any kind of a text into the cell, other than when you're formatting it, which is something we'll do later, it then won't pick it up as a number. So now if I don't put any text in there and I do a multiplication times 2, it will work. Then we need 400 grams of sugar, 25 ml syrup, 75 ml water, 60 gram butter, 5 ml vanilla. So this was sugar, syrup, water, butter, vanilla. So that's all the ingredients for making our fudge. But most of the time, you don't just want to make one batch of fudge. Let's say you wanted 2 batches of fudge, or a client, let's role play. Let's say a client orders 10 batches of fudge from you. So now you could fit your calculator or your pen and your paper, or you can use Excel to make your life easy. I'm going to start the difficult way, which most of us started with when we were fiddling around with Excel. If you just click in the cell and you go up to the formula bar at the top, you can say, put an equation in there, and you can say equals to. You then click on the cell that you want, and you can type in a formula. So let's say times 2 for a times 2 batch. Now you can go and you can do that for every single cell one by one, which is going to take you a bit of time, but at least you're not using a calculator, but it's just as good as using a calculator. It's a slow way. Once you put your formula into one cell, you can click. If you see over here, there's a little block on the side of the cell. Let me zoom right in. Might be better. There's a little grip over there. If you grab that grip and you hold your click button in and you drag, it copies the formula from the previous cell automatically down for you. So over there, we now immediately have 6 different formulas put in a few seconds. What we could do, or what we should do, is we could have here a field called number of batches, and we can put a number in there for 2 batches. Now, instead of putting a 2, and I highly recommend that you never actually put any hard-coded numbers directly into a cell. As far as you can, try and rather use references to other cells. So in this case, there where I have the times 2, I can delete that, and I can go and click on my number of batches. It's going to give me exactly the same answer and I always want that red one to stay in place. I never want it to move. Let me show you what happens, why I'm saying that. So I'm going to take that again on the little grip, and I'm going to drag it down. Now, all of a sudden, my formula's gone broken. If I click on it, and I click on the formula bar, I'll see that it moved the blue one, but the red one moved as well. We can solve that by just clicking in front of the cell reference, and you can push F4, and it puts $1 and $1 in front of your little cell. That means the $1 and the $1 is like putting your little cell in jail, so it won't move. If I drag this now, it will now take all my original ingredients and it will multiply it by 2. But now another client wants an order of 12. I can just change my batch number to 12, and there automatically all my ingredients are up. Or I know I can go to Pick and Pay once and get all of those. If they want at 150 batches or 150 batches, same thing, it would just automatically update. I'll probably buy 150 batches if somebody's selling, by the way. Let's put it back to like a realistic number. Let's put it to a 5. It's always a good idea to label your columns so that you can remember what you've done.
Billy, while you're
Right.
busy there, can you... Oh, what's the key that you punched in for that, to keep that number of batches in? But I've already forgotten it. Can you maybe just type in a note somewhere?
I can
Was
do.
F...
Or
Ah, thanks.
the thing is, we're talking about it. There's a neat little caveat on that. It depends on where you put the $, which one it keeps. So if I take the $, in front of the C away, see there, it keeps the column. But if I pull it this way, it loses the row.
Oh.
But if I change this, the $, in front of the C back, and I take it away from the 1, it's gonna keep the row but lose the column. So the easiest way, normally a person dollars both, and you can also cycle through the F4. If you push F4 a few times, it puts it in front of each one and then back to the original one. It also saves you a lot of time by doing it that way. Just now when I did this, I dragged this this little tab down. You can also just double click it and it will shoot down as far as it got till it gets a break. That's very useful if you've got 3,000 items on your catalog and you want to update a VAT or something like that. You can just update it in one double click and it will just shoot it down until it finds a break in any data. Okay, let's quickly put some costing in. So let's say a can of condensed milk costs 35 bucks. Sugar, I don't even know what it costs for a kilogram. 25 bucks. Syrup, I don't know, 30 rand. Water, 5 rand. Butter, no idea. Vanilla. Right, so there we've got some costs in. I just want to show you guys how to do a format on a cell, because the moment if we're going to put an R in front of it, it's going to break it. So we can go to format cells and you can shoot down to currency. And on your drop down, you'll find a whole bunch of different currencies. Using the R for Rand, and I think this is actually, I normally battle with the R for Rand one to find it. I don't know if I made this one custom, but if you guys want to do advanced or not, this is a very good format to keep. for South African rands when you're working with anything. I don't like my R right next to my numbers. I like a gap between my R and my numbers. So I can select everything. I can say format cells. I can go to custom, and I think if I just put a space in there behind my R, then it's got a nice little space in there. Now, if I say that times by my batch number, for example, you see it's still picking it up as a number, and it will auto format the next cell based on the parent. So now we want to make fudge, and we've got our costs in per kilogram or per packet or per tin or whatever our unit of measure is. But we're not making a whole packet of fudge. We want to make, let's go back to making, we want to make one batch of fudge, and we want to know what it's going to cost us. We need another column, which would be a per unit column. In other words, so we'll have 10 Rand per liter or 2 Rand per kilogram or whatever. So we'll take our price and we're going to divide it by our unit. So there we're paying, for condensed milk, we're paying 9 cents per milliliter. It's a matter of interest. It's the market value. I know that one. It's about the only price I know. I like condensed milk. All right. So we're going to have our last column would be our total cost. So our total would be our cost per unit times by our total amount of ingredients that's used. So in this case, if we're making one batch, it's going to be these costs. And I can drag that down. And at the moment, because that's at a 1, these two columns will match. But look, let's say we go back to our 5 batches. So there I've still got my cost per 1 unit. I've still got my original ingredients for one batch. Here's the ingredients for the batch that I'm quoting on now. And then this, Carlo, I didn't do my dollar.
That's what I said. You did not do F4.
I should have listened. There, yeah. All right. So here's our per unit cost, and then here's our total cost for our number of batches. An interesting little thing that you can do is you can put a and you can click, oh, I must put an equals. You can put your text that you want in little rabbit ears. You can put the and sign, and then you can click another cell, a reference cell, and it will concatenate it automatically. Concatenate means put two things together, like you have a name and a surname, or you have a bunch of things that you want to do. If I wanted a space in there, I can just put a little space and a semicolon, and that helps to neaten that out and make us understand that a bit better. Quickly want to neaten that up and just do some basic formatting on it. Make it look like a table. I'm not going to explain all that now for the sake of time. So yeah, you'd have a neat little calculator that if you were doing laser cutting, for example, you could put in all your different materials, your cost per square meter or your cost per sheet, and you can work out your unit cost for your material. And then you can say for the number of items that you're making, you can do mathematics. As you saw, it's best to organize your data in different rows and columns. Don't do like the example over here and put everything in one line, because then it's pretty useless in a spreadsheet. In order for Excel to have brains and to be able to leverage the functionality that's in there, you need to be able to separate your stuff like this. But now let's quickly, seeing as we're running businesses, why don't we just turn this into a quick little invoice? because why else would we be using Excel other than for quoting and doing calculations, but more often than not, quoting and invoicing. Just gonna grab all of this. At the bottom of the sheet, there's a little plus. You can open up a new tab, and I'm just going to paste it. I'm not going to paste it in the top left over here because I want some space to work, because I haven't planned out my structure yet. So I'm just going to paste it in here. If we double click on, if we select the columns and we double click, move our mouse over the little space between the two columns and you double click, it automatically adjusts them to exactly the right size. I don't like that. It makes me crazy to have different column lengths. So we can go and we can right click and we can manually put in our column lengths. And I'm quite fond of centering my data when I'm working with it, other than my text. Normally with an invoice, you want the latest date, and I don't know about you guys, but before I had automated systems and stuff, I always forget to change the date. It's something you tell yourself you're going to do, but when you've done 10 or 20 quotes, it's you can easily forget. So you can automate that as well. You can put a little formula in which says equals. Let me just zoom right in. Equals today. Open brackets, close brackets. Boom. There we've got the date of today. We could say, and we could say now, because I do a lot of quotes in the day. So did I do the quote in the morning? Did I do the quote in the evening? When did I do the quote? So it says it's now. Okay, I'll have to change the format, but so there it's giving me the date and the time. And so it's the date and the time of the quote. So you'll see as the time goes by, and every time that the spreadsheet updates, it's going to automatically update that date and time. So at the moment that you send your quote, it will be timestamped. And you can either put it in your heading, or you can put it somewhere on the bottom of your document. You could say quoted on that date, and you could say validity. And let's say we want to add, I hope it's going to take 7 days, and it's not thinking in hours now. Yes, it did. Okay, so we can say the quote's valid for 7 days, and it actually automatically will work you out what that date is, so that you don't forget it and have some strange date there in the past or anything like that. You see that every time something happens now, it's going to auto update that. I'm going to change the format of that date. We can go to format cells, date, and let's have it written out. Nice. So we have one written out and one not. Let's make that tiny. Might just look a bit better. Okay, so just quote it on that day. It's valid for that day, and you can put your company name, your details on this side, for example. And over here, you could put in all your customer details. What is something that we always want to see on a quote or an invoice? We want to see a total. So you see, I had dollar, I didn't paste formulas. You see because I had all the dollars in on the other side, and I pasted, it kept all the dollars. So just be careful of that. When I had a look now and I saw everything's broken, so it was easy to fix. So I just need to fix one cell. It's a good thing it broke, actually. I just have to fix one cell, and I can double click, and then they'll all be fixed. Alternatively, you could go and click and drag if that makes you less anxious. But like I say, I prefer to, or you could go and fix every single one manually. by dragging it, or you can actually go in here and you can type the cell reference out yourself if you knew what it is. It's F18. Now you could go and change it manually, but that whole minute that I spent, I could have just saved by double clicking on the little drop down tab.
Just a quick question, Billy. Did you actually take that cell you clicked and dragged and dropped it? Did that actually
Yes.
work?
So what you can do is when you click on your cell, it's not not functional. You can go and click up in the formula bar, then it activates your cells, and you can actually see the color references to the color in the bar of the text there. Another thing you can do is you can just, I think it's F2. If you hit F2, then it shows you like that, and you can see the colors. Then you can grab these cell references and drag them about. Let me show you here with a total. So for the total, you can do a number of things. You could go, our total is equal to that one plus that one plus that one. But if we've got a lot of things, it's going to drive you insane. If you've got, say, 30, 40 columns, the best thing to do is to use the auto sum up at the top. We say auto sum, and we can click and drag our cell references over what we want summed. So there it's giving me a total of 795. Let's do the F2 trick. Hit F2. I can drag this and I'll now have what was the total of my per unit. Or I can do the F2 trick and I can drag it to whatever, in any other cell if you quickly wanted to make a move on the fly. That also helps that you don't have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to go and find your data and do strange things with it. All right. But a very important thing, and it's a rich person problem, and we all want to be there, is to be able to charge a percentage of VAT. I'm just going to put the VAT percentage in a, let me put it underneath here because I want it in a separate cell. For VAT, we can say it equals to our total times by our VAT divided by 100. That would be the slow way of doing that. We could go our VAT divide our total divide by our VAT, and then up at the top here we can, what do I do now? It remembered something. Huh? Not divide, it's times. How's my brain? If I format this VAT as a percentage, then I don't have to go and do any further maths in my answer because I'm already referring to a percentage, or you can do the times by 0.15. It's actually better if you do learn, if you're all learning from the beginning, learn to use your auto formats that Microsoft has spent millions and millions on developing things like this to make life easy for us. So don't try and do it yourself. Then we can have a grand total, which is the auto sum of those two. If we didn't want to do an auto sum, we could say equals the sum. We put an open bracket and we can click and drag over those cells, close the bracket and hit enter, and it will be a sum of the two. So I don't know, Liana, before I do the if statement, because what I want to do after the quick little break is, what if now you charge VAT sometimes and sometimes you don't charge VAT? You're getting, you have customers that you don't charge VAT for. You don't want to go and delete the cell over there, because then you have to put it back every time, and that's going to take your time. So have a think about it. Then after the break, we see if you guys have any ideas.
Okay, so for this week's design challenge, we have an exciting challenge. You have to design and make a unique cell phone stand to celebrate Women's Day. And your design must include an inspirational quote that you engrave or Mod Podge or whatever onto your design. It's your choice. No other limitations, just having fun and designing a unique cell phone stand. But we also have an exciting prize to go with the challenge. So Anna-Marie from Procurement for You was very nice to us, and she sponsored a mini biltong and spice cutter, as well as a 64 gig bamboo USB that's up for grabs. So make sure that you go and design and cut your cell phone stands, post it on Facebook. Most likes by next week Tuesday will be the winner of that amazing Procurement for You hamper. You have less than 48 hours to go because the cutoff date for entries is Sunday night at 6. So make sure that you get your entries in. TikTok.
We want to see your entry as well, Joanna.
I'm sitting in the bundus, Billy.
No, when you're back from the bundus. Does anybody have an idea? If I didn't want to charge VAT, I could go and delete it, but then I'd have to put it back every time. Or what would you do? An easy way to make your life easier in the future is you can make a little list that's off your page somewhere, and we can select a cell over here. We can go over to data, and on the data validation tab, if you follow my mouse over here, see there's a little data validation tab. We can take the top one, which is data validation. And what we want to select there is we want to say we want a list. It then asks us, or we have to tell it where we want the list from. And we want the list from the yes and the no. So we can put a little block around the yes and the no. It's okay. Now, when we click on this little cell, it's got a drop down, and we can select if they're what we want entered. So we don't have, you can go and type it. So let's say I typed it wrong. It's going to tell me I've got an error because I can only type yes and I can only type no, or I need to select it from my drop down. It's also nice about data validation. There's a bunch of other things you can do other than list, but it helps you so that you don't make any mistakes when you're in your formatting when you're working with large spreadsheets. So let's say that charged, yes. So if VAT is charged is yes, we want a value to be there. If we don't want to charge VAT, then we want that value to be a 0. So for that, you can do more complex things like writing an if statement. So you could say if this column here, or this cell where I have my data in, is equal to yes, then you put depending on how you're formatting, it could be a comma or it could be a semicolon. Then what your value is if your answer is true. So if your answer is yes, do me the maths. If my answer is no, give me a 0. Or if my answer is anything else other than what's in there. Right, so now if I change this to no, it takes away the percentage of VAT charged, and it takes it away from the grand total as well. If for some reason we got very lucky and they dropped the VAT charges to 10% and we charging VAT, it will add in 10%. So now the real power of this comes in, that this might have taken you, let's call it an hour of your life to set something like this up. But the power of using it next time is that when you come in here and you suddenly want to do 15 batches and you don't want to charge VAT because you're making it for the church, then there you'd have your answers for buying your, well, firstly, what is going to cost you without that to buy all the ingredients, and you have your totals that you need to cook up, either all in one big batch, or if you wanted to cook them in 2 batches at a time because you've got a smaller pot, you could then look at that to see how much ingredients of each you got to put in there. So what I'm suggesting is that at least if you learn how to do basic mathematics, like what I showed here with the plus, you can do that with plus, minus, divide, times. I mean, most of us can do the primary school stuff, so don't get too complicated with other things. And then fiddle around here with the auto sum, because you can do, instead of adding everything up automatically, you don't have to go and learn the formulas. You can just say, I want in this column, for some reason, I wanted the average of all of those numbers, or I wanted what the maximum number in that range is. Maximum number in that range is, or I wanted the minimum number. So yeah, fiddle around with those. There's the most commonly used ones are automatically put on, and stuff that you use more and more often, it will start putting in there. You can do nice things like your normal formatting, where you go and you do your bold and your stuff as you do in Coral or anywhere else. One that you might not know about is this one here that looks like a little table, is that you can put a thick outside border on something. That's the one I use most commonly to make my things look a little bit better when I'm ready to actually turn this into an invoice and put my company logo and everything else on there. But when we make the video, I'll make a little list of the shortcut keys that we used, and we can put that on the bottom of the video, or as we talk about it, we can have them flash up or whatever for you guys. Definitely try and replicate this, and then as a real challenge, go and build yourself a little calculator to calculate what it costs you to make 10 coasters in terms of MDF and in Perspex. But use one table that you can just change your material, MDF or Perspex. That's your yes or your no. It can be your MDF or your Perspex, and then see how you can work that in. And if you follow it, yeah, you'll basically just replace, well, replicate what we've done here by just planning your data out a little bit. But yeah, guys, Carlo, you want to take us through what's happening next week?
Yes, thanks a lot, Billy. In actual fact, you just caught me off guard now. Let me just pull that sheet up quickly. On next week, we've got Liana that is gonna speak to us and give us some tips and tricks on Coral Laser. And Billy, I think you're gonna assist a little bit with the K40 Whisperer as well. So we're looking at combining those two. I know there's quite a few people that use it on this group, and once again, I can, like we've seen week after week, I think I knew everything about Excel. I've made what I think was complex calculations, and I just learned quite a bit. And I think the same benefit will be next week on Coral Laser. I don't know that at all. I've never used it, so I'm really looking forward to that. And the K40 Whisperer. Believe I'm not mistaken, you are quite a fundi on that one. So
well, that's what we use. So we were forced into it. So I guess we fell in love with it because it was a love-hate relationship, and now I just love it. I know Liana tried it and she hates it, and she went back to Coral Laser. So you guys will have a Coral Laser fundi showing you Coral Laser, and I'll show you K40. It's all that I use at the moment. So I had to learn it.
Yes, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've worked on on K40 Whisperer once when I assisted somebody with it, and I couldn't, for the love of me, figure that thing out. So I would really like to see that work, and also I'm very curious when everybody talks about Coral Laser on the group. Um, oh, I've never used it. I'm fascinated, so I can't wait for that one. I think we're going to stick around for another 5 minutes or so and have a chat about it. So you're welcome to stay around and join us for that. In the future, we will also do a more advanced one. Um, some of us that have used Excel probably know 90% of what we did, and just bear with us. But we have to start at the beginning, because if we don't, then we exclude quite a few people, and that's certainly not fair. So when we do these things, we're going to start at the beginning and make sure we include everybody and take everyone along for the ride.
Yeah, and a person forgets almost where you started. So when I had to try and do something basic, you actually start stuttering because you've got your methods of doing things. And if you think back, yes, like 20 years ago when I started with this, yeah, we literally just sit with a calculator and then fill the cells in, work them out in a calculator, fill cells in, because we were off. And then 2 weeks goes by where you're working 8 hours a day and all you're doing is hitting the calculator and typing the keyboard. And then you see some intern or somebody comes in or somebody else, and they do this work in literally in like 2 minutes, and how the hell did you do that? And they just clicked that thing and they dragged it. Yeah, you were sitting with a calculator for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that F4, I don't know how I got along all these years without using. No, I know how I got along. I was walking the long way. I wasn't wasn't using the shortcuts, and yeah.
So if you've got 128 columns and you've got 3,000 rows, that's when that F4 or the dollar, whatever your dollar works. But you might want to keep your quantity, but you want to change your ranking, your different price levels as you drag something across. Then you can dollar the one and not. So you always dollar the one you want to keep, the column or the row. I call the dollar the little jail. I don't know if that's why they made it like that, because it looks like the X is in a jail. But maybe it's the easy way to remember. If you can't remember the F4, just look above the number for the dollar and just put it in manually.
Yeah, it's on there on the keyboard.
Sorry, now I said I have a question for Billy, but if it fits into the more advanced session, you can answer me next time then. If you're doing invoicing on Excel, is there a way to put your put the client's names and phone numbers and other info in on a spreadsheet, and then have a cell on your invoice where you can just have like a drop down menu and you choose your client, and the cell phone number and all the info of your client just drags into your invoice?
Sure. How about I do it quick? Let's see if I can do it within 2 minutes. Right. And I think most of that time is actually going to be spent on typing in Liana's details. Let's just say we need a name. I'm trying to think like a normal person. I think the other way around. I don't like thinking in rows. I like thinking in columns. I know that confuses some people sometimes, but we'll see why I like that. So name, company, telephone number. Let's just do 3 things. Might as well do address. It's not going to take any time. So name is, I'm going to put the name and the surname in one. Company, Cosmos and Yacht. Telephone number 74592. It's going to not like the 0 in front there, or is it taking it as text? That's good, it has. If I go and put my information in, like you would write it down in a diary, it's going to be very difficult to work with it later in Excel. So that's where the data formatting comes in. You've got to think more like a database. You've got to think in rows and columns, because a computer needs a coordinate. It needs a row and a column to find something. So we can do that pretty simply. I can select that data, I can copy it, and if I right click to paste, and you'll see there's a little button here called transpose. If I click that button, transpose, or I hit T on my keyboard, it switches
the
data
column
from rows to columns. I'm somewhere going to delete that because I don't like that format. And let's say your address was 4 Cosmos. I hope that's not really your address. And let's say we've got Billy. So we've got Billy, and we've got how many do I have? And I'm in number 7 Yardstraat. Okay. So now you can go and capture all your client's details, as much information as you have on your client. Over here by our customer name, I can go back onto my data bar, and no man, I don't want to do a validation. I want to say equals, and I'm going to do a Vlookup. See, as you start typing it, it's going to pull it up in here. No, the first one, I need the client's name, sorry. Okay, so on the first one, we need to make a data validation, and we want it from a list, right? On our source, click on my source, move over to the tab that I want, and I want all of these names, and I'm going to select extra ones so that when I add them in, they automatically get added to my list. So I want all of those names to be on my list. Now, if I go here, I can select Billy, or I can select Liana. But I can go and add in Carlo and Minky. If I go back to my list over here, it'll now have Carlo and Minky in it. But now I want, in the next line, what information did we have there? We want the company. So we want to know in the next line what the company name is. So we can do a Vlookup, open the brackets to start the thing, say we want to look up Liana or whatever's in that cell, semicolon, in your table array, which is in sheet 3 in this case, and we select the whole table that we want to reference. We don't just want to select the first 2 because we might want to reference a lot more later. So I'm just going to make it go all the way down to the bottom so it's doing a lot again at a time. Over here, very important, F4 always. Don't even try not to F4. When you get good with a VLOOKUP, you can start taking your dollars and stuff away. It can do your brain in seriously when you start doing VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs with movable cells. A VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP unfortunately works with a column index. How that works is we would your first row would be your first column. So we knew it was in our second column. The column number is 2, and the range to look up is always type false. False in this case means exact number. I don't know why they should have made true is an exact and false, but false is an exact number, true is you don't want an exact number. So if you had multiple Liana Buertas by accident, it's always going to pick up the top one. But if you have it on false, it won't get confused. But yeah, put in false. So now if I change this name back to Billy, it pulls up Billy's company. If I pull in Carlo, oh, there's no information for Carlo. I can go in and I can say it's amazing things. And yeah, it already automatically pulled it in. And then you can now do exactly the same thing. Go and do a lookup and a lookup and a lookup and spend time. But you see that I dollared the ones in my table, but I haven't dollared Liana. So let me dollar Liana and let me just drag this thing down 3 rows. It's going to give me exactly the same answer. But on the next one, I can say I wanted the information in column 3. In the next one, I can say I wanted the information in column 4. And in the next one, I can say I wanted the information in column 5. So now as I change to Billy, it's got all Billy's contact details there, and you can obviously format that however you want. If I go into Carlo, I can see I'm missing a lot of information that I need to go and collect from him. We didn't have a fifth one there. We could say, do you charge box taxes or not? And that can be a, but you have to translate the box to Afrikaans to understand the terminology of what box tax is. Ask me on a private message on YouTube. Oh, no, we don't charge Leona box tax. Definitely not.
Let's not go there.
Carlo might get some box tax, and Minky definitely not. Yeah. And now we can see if this pops up and we see, oh, Carlo's a difficult customer. It's got a yes. It can be something that you have grayed out, or something that a client won't see, that only you can see. But at least it's a warning to say, look, if you quote this guy, box tag means times by 5 or times by 2 if he gives you a hard time. Then if that answers you, I've actually got beautiful PowerPoint slides where I break these formulas down into different colors with real words, not cell references like others, which will add onto the final edit for you guys. So this one is a Vlookup, so that's a vertical lookup. So what that means is, you saw the way I structured my data. I have column headings, and I put all my information down in rows. If you do it the other way, you need to do an Hlookup. But in this case, with this kind of data, it won't work. Then now it gets really confusing. You can start doing indexes, you can start doing matches and indexes, you can start doing indexes with Vlookups, you can start getting really crazy on these things. I know with the latest updates last year with Excel, they've got some very nice new functionality with matching data up, like in proper databasing software. So yes, this program is super powerful, and you can automate just about anything. And yeah, we'll actually go through that process, and you can turn this thing into a little quote that's fully printable, that's grayed out, that when you go in, you can only put information in where you want to, and the rest is locked up so that you yourself don't break it. Because the worst thing is, you come in here quickly, oh, I don't have Carlo's information, I'm too lazy to go and update my sheet for some reason, so I just manually type it in here. Now I go back, I go to Leona, and broken everything. It's not a problem. It was easy. I can fix it by just fixing up my references. Let's just say I didn't dollar it at all, which is what you would have done. And you wanted to drag this formula, you'll see it would have broken because it would have moved this. You'd have to move this back. You'd have to go back to your other table and go and fix those references, and it can be quite messy. If that does happen to you, and you do manage to break this one, and it's a bit complicated to fix, you can't remember, you can go and copy one directly from the formula bar. Don't ever copy from the cell. Copy directly from the formula bar. Click on the cell that you want, and then you can paste it into the formula bar. That way, nothing moves. It keeps the original references, and then you can just change your column number. If you copy it there in the cell and you paste it and it's not dollared, everything moves. The same as if it's not dollared and you drag it, it moves. The copy automatically does what a drag would have done. So yeah, best thing is just put them in jail. And then we can double click, and then we've put our column references back, and we're fixed up. Yeah, maybe you should try do an Hlookup next week when you're back. Try the Vlookup and try an Hlookup and see if you can actually get them to work. Don't do what I did and do it on 2 separate pages. Do it on 1 page. Put your information here so that you can figure that out. And then when you've got that right, then you can start skipping to a new page. When you skip to that new page, you'll either write it down on a piece of paper, because you can easily forget where you were if you've got a lot of data. But yeah, once you've played with it and with your lists and lookups, Oh, that was a new one. It used to only be Vlookup and Hlookup. They've got a new function just called lookup. Very, 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 very interesting. It works like we used to have to do an index match array type thing to do what just a lookup does now. See there, looks up a value either from one row or column range or from an array. So it's like a super powered lookup. Before we had to put the little squiggly brackets in and do what Control-Shift-Enter to turn it into array to do what a lookup now does automatically. It did take Microsoft years to come up with, so I guess it wasn't easy, and that's why we did it the long way always.
Thanks, Billy. That was quite interesting. It's funny how the information comes through afterwards in the chat when we think we're done. You really tickled my interest now with the normal lookup. I didn't know that was available. Yes, we just don't have the time. I would have loved to spend some more time and have a chat about that. Nevertheless, I'm going to look into it on my own. When I saw you do it, I looked at the time. I said, damn, man, we don't have time to cover this, but I want to know more about it. So, and I actually had something else I was going to say now, and I forgot about it because my mind just went straight to the lookup to go and look and see what that is. Other than that, if anybody has any other questions or would like to add something, whatever I was going to say was just knocked out of my mind by the lookup. So yes, I would really encourage everybody who hasn't done this before, have a look, play with it, see if you can do a couple of formulas. Even if you just start by adding a couple of cells together and then moving on from that, the application is really very powerful, and it can really, if you utilize it correctly, it can help your business in so many ways.